Have you ever experienced that unsettling feeling that something isn't quite right with reality? Those moments when the world seems slightly off, when coincidences pile up in impossible ways, or when you experience déjà vu so strong it leaves you dizzy? Today, we're going to explore an extraordinary possibility. What if you've already died, and your current experience is actually a form of consciousness continuing after death? Let's start with something many of us have experienced, those strange moments when time seems to slip, when memories feel hazy or incomplete, or when coincidences become so profound they seem orchestrated. The ancient Tibetan Book of the Dead describes a state called the bardo, a transitional period between death and rebirth where consciousness continues to experience a reality that feels remarkably similar to life. Think about your earliest memory. Now think about how you know everything before that actually happened. Your childhood home, your early years, the world before you remember, it's all constructed from stories, photos, and what others have told you. But what if those weren't real memories at all? What if they were simply part of a constructed narrative, implanted to give context to your current conscious experience? Consider the phenomenon of near-death experiences. People who have clinically died and been revived often report experiencing a comprehensive life review, where they relive their entire existence in a moment. But here's where it gets interesting. What if what you're experiencing right now is actually that life review? What if your current consciousness is actually experiencing that moment of reflection after death? The concept becomes even more fascinating when we look at quantum physics. Scientists have discovered that our reality behaves very differently when it's not being observed. It exists in a state of probability rather than actuality. This has led some theorists to suggest that consciousness might be fundamental to reality itself. What if your consciousness is creating this reality as you experience it, rather than simply perceiving an objective external world? Think about dreams for a moment. When you're dreaming, everything feels completely real until you wake up. Your dream self rarely questions the strange logic of the dream world or notices obvious inconsistencies. What if our current experience is similar, a kind of prolonged dream state that our post-death consciousness is experiencing? Those occasional feelings of something's not quite right might be moments when we briefly glimpse the true nature of our situation. The Last Thursday theory presents another intriguing angle. This philosophical thought experiment suggests that the universe might have been created last Thursday, complete with all our memories of a past that never actually happened. While this might sound absurd at first, it raises a profound question. How would you know if your memories were real or implanted? What if your consciousness began at the moment of death, but was given a complete set of false memories to maintain the illusion of continuity? Consider how many people report feeling that time is accelerating as they get older. Days and weeks seem to blur together. Years pass more quickly than they used to. Could this be a sign that this experience is different from our original life? In many near-death experiences, people report that time becomes fluid, losing its linear quality. Maybe this acceleration of time is a hint that we're not in regular reality anymore. The phenomenon of déjà vu becomes particularly interesting in this context. That strange feeling that you've experienced something before, even when you know you couldn't have. What if these are moments when your consciousness briefly recognizes the artificial nature of this experience? What if déjà vu is a glitch in the system, a moment when the illusion briefly breaks down? Think about those inexplicable coincidences that sometimes occur in life, those moments when everything lines up in ways that seem impossible by chance. What if these aren't coincidences at all, but rather artifacts of a constructed experience? Just as dreams often contain seemingly meaningful patterns and connections, perhaps these coincidences are signs that our current reality isn't as objective as we assume. The idea becomes even more intriguing when we consider how memory works. Scientists have shown that every time we recall a memory, we actually modify it slightly. Our memories aren't perfect recordings, but rather reconstructions that change over time. What if this malleability of memory is actually a feature of this post-death state, allowing our consciousness to create and maintain the illusion of continuity? Consider those moments when you suddenly become aware of your own consciousness, when you step back and observe your thoughts and actions as if from outside. These moments of meta-awareness might be glimpses of your true state, moments when your post-death consciousness briefly recognizes its own nature. The concept of parallel universes adds another layer to this possibility. Quantum physics suggests that multiple versions of reality might exist simultaneously. What if death isn't an end but rather a transition, where consciousness shifts to experiencing one of these alternate realities? Your current experience might be your consciousness exploring these parallel possibilities after your physical death in another reality. Think about how dreams can incorporate external stimuli. A ringing phone becomes part of the dream narrative, or a cold room manifests as a dream about snow. What if our current experience is similar, with our post-death consciousness creating a coherent narrative around the remnants of our actual death experience? Those inexplicable feelings of anxiety or peace might be echoes of our true situation bleeding through. The nature of consciousness itself remains one of science's greatest mysteries. We don't understand how subjective experience arises from physical matter, or why we have consciousness at all. What if consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but rather exists independently, using the brain as a tool to experience physical reality? In this view, death wouldn't end consciousness, but merely change its state of expression. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if this post-death state isn't just a replay or reflection, but an opportunity for growth and understanding? Many spiritual traditions suggest that death is a transition rather than an end. Perhaps this experience you're having now is part of that transition, a chance to process and understand your life from a new perspective. Consider how dreams often process and integrate our daily experiences in surprising ways. What if this entire experience is serving a similar function, allowing your consciousness to process and understand your life experience in a deeper way? Those moments of sudden insight or understanding might be your consciousness achieving its purpose in this state. The concept of time itself becomes questionable in this context. If this is a post-death state, there's no reason it would need to follow linear time as we understand it. Your entire experience might be happening in an instant, expanded into what feels like years of subjective experience. This might explain why time seems to behave so strangely as we age. But here's a comforting thought. If this is a post-death state, it means that death itself isn't the end we fear. It would mean that consciousness continues, that our experiences and relationships have meaning beyond physical existence. Even if this is all a kind of dream, the emotions we feel and the connections we make would still be real on some level. As we wrap up this exploration, consider this. Whether or not we're actually in a post-death state, this perspective can remind us to question our assumptions about reality and consciousness. It encourages us to pay attention to those moments when the world seems strange or impossible, to consider that our experience might be more complex and mysterious than we typically assume. So the next time you experience déjà vu, encounter an impossible coincidence, or feel that something isn't quite right with reality, remember, maybe these aren't glitches in the system, but rather glimpses of a deeper truth about your existence. Whether we're alive, dead, or somewhere in between, the mystery of consciousness continues to invite us to question everything we think we know about reality.